So, hello everybody, very good morning to all of you. So, once again, welcome to the Innovation Tech Community. So, today again we have collaborated with Priti as well. So, we can discuss about some of Azure OpenAI services and he can explain some of the concepts in Azure OpenAI services. And let's move on from the session. So, he can explain some of the bits related to the Azure OpenAI services and the cognitive services as well. And he can explain that information about that. So I can handle and go on this session to yeah, please share.
Put this in the discussions in different organizations as well, and even in the internal Microsoft and other places as well. So the key agenda I'm going to be covering is the brief overview of OpenAI, and then dive more into different models that we have, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the key terms that are associated with OpenAI, just from a background perspective, and eventually dive into a little bit more on some use cases and some part of the demo. And if time permits, I'll open up for Q&A, and there are some Q&A which I left at the end of the session as well, which normally people have been asking about what they can do and what they can do and stuff like that. So let's quickly go over on it, and then we can quickly look into the demo and then open for the Q&A afterward. So just to quickly start with a high-level background into how OpenAI has been evolved, mainly from a generative AI perspective. So history perspective, we had artificial intelligence, which has been around for quite some time in 1956, right? When the whole goal for the AI is to imitate, say, human behavior by relying on machines to learn and execute tasks without explicit direction on what to output, right? So that's really what we are trying to imitate. But after that, in 1997, there was a rise of machine learning, as you may all know, which is we take the data into the model, for example, like the weather condition, and fit that data to an algorithm to make more prediction, like how much money a store might be making in a given day, for example, or in weather condition, what the weather pattern would look like in next week and stuff like that, right? So that's really where the machine learning comes into. The next evolution came in 2017, where deep learning came into a picture, where we are using layers of network, which is used to process the data in much faster and efficient way to process a more data and more deeper integration that it can come out with a just like our human brain is using the neural network, right? So it can process the data and it can interrelate the data in a different ways. So that's where the deep learning came into the picture, and then here comes the generative AI, right? And the whole goal for the generative AI is the model that are based on the attention is all you need article. So I'm not sure if you guys have read this article, but this was article published a few years back, which really transformed the way we were doing the machine learning, right? This is again based on the transformer model. Before this, supervised and unsupervised and discriminative models were really used, where you take the data and you train your model according to that. But this new generative model is based off on the transformer model, and which is based off on the massive corpus with a self-supervised learning behind the scene, sort of, right? It still use some supervised and unsupervised, but it also uses self-supervised learning behind the scene. And the OpenAI really models are a collection of generative AI models that can then produce language, code, and images out of those predefined, pre-trained massive corpus from those, right? So that's really the high-level background of AI and where OpenAI sits, which is in the generative AI space. That's where it sits right now. So quickly covering a little bit on a background on the partnership of Microsoft and OpenAI. So as you all know, Microsoft has formed a partnership with OpenAI to collaborate on the development of artificial intelligence technologies. And the whole goal for this partnership is to aim to accelerate the development of advanced AI systems and bring the benefits of AI to more people. And as part of this partnership, Microsoft and OpenAI have agreed to work together on several key areas, including developing AI technologies and advancing in the AI research, which can, again, the goal is to benefit AI to more people and organizations at the end. Okay, and as you know, there are various different models available as part of OpenAI. GPT-3 is the core foundational model, which is used to generate and understand the text. And the codex is mainly used for generating and understanding the code. And you can just ask any question, and it can ask to write certain code in Python or some other languages. It can write the code for you. So that's where you use the codex models. And then DALI is another category where it can generate the images. You ask a different prompts to the DALI, and then you refine your prompts, and it can generate the images according to what you are asking to do. And then I've seen very impressive result out of those. So we will cover some of this GPT-3 area mainly during today's topic. Not on the DALI because it's not currently available as part of Azure OpenAI service. So we'll just cover on the first two in most part. Moving on, so where does OpenAI sits in our overall service landscape in AI space? So as you know, we have at the bottom, we have Azure machine learning, where you can develop your own model and stuff like that. But on top of that, we have a cognitive service, which is where the OpenAI service is enabled or is part of. And this is where you can call the endpoints, and then there are already pre-trained models are out there, and then you call the endpoint, and it just gives you a response back based on whichever service that you are trying to use. And there are other things that you built on top of it. Again, from the bottom, you have more coded solution that you have more control over. As you go upper and upper, you are going towards low code to no code solution. So that's how I would interpret this diagram. But again, some of the services then you eventually use within your application, so sometimes the SaaS application and stuff like that, and then you leverage some of these features and technologies underneath. You can call it and then leverage those for your use or integrate as part of your processes. Moving on to Azure OpenAI. So how is Azure OpenAI different from OpenAI, right? So again, OpenAI gives you sets of model, but where it lacks is the providing you a platform as a service. That's where it doesn't offer you that. So that's where the Azure OpenAI comes into the play, where it is aimed to provide a scalability and reliability that you normally get it as part of your other services Azure is offering. So really, it is based off some of the features that it is offering is the robust, responsible content filtering and low latency service, security and all those things, which is already baked it into that one. So some of these things are already leveraging existing features and technologies which are already baked into Azure that you have already been using, virtual network and all those kind of stuff. It's all baked into this Azure OpenAI service. So as a whole package, you get a more scalable and robust and reliable service. So that's really what Azure OpenAI offers on top of OpenAI. So basically, some of these OpenAI models, they have been pulled into Azure and then bundle that as part of the platform as a service. Moving on, some of the key concepts I would like to bring everybody to attention. These are some of the important concepts which you hear or terms that you normally see as part of the OpenAI. So most of the time you see the prompts or prompt engineering. So what basically it is this is an input that you provide to ask OpenAI to generate something out, right? And it is very important that you provide a very precise input or more better input you provide, more better output you will gonna get. In some cases, for example, here is give me a list of cat breeds, right? Or sorry, if you ask, give me a list of breeds, right? So it won't know what exactly you're asking for. But if you specify, give me a list of cat breeds, then it's going to be more precise in how it responds. So again, the key guidelines here is show and tell. So basically, you should be showing and telling what you explicitly looking for, and then it should give you a better result. And making sure you have provide a good quality data in order for a model to generate. So if you are trying to summarize something or trying to categorize something, make sure the quality of the data is better. Then it can give you much better results. Also make sure you check your settings. For example, there are settings like temperature, which is basically how generative the response needs to be. So in some cases, if you are just looking for factual information, then you should keep your temperature low. But if you are writing a poem, for example, or writing a story, or a little bit more generative in nature, then and in that case, you keep the temperature a little bit higher. So it can give you a different responses in more generative in nature rather than more of a factual in nature. The other concept is tokens. So all the responses that you send to OpenAI or receives the output from OpenAI is calculated in terms of tokens. And tokens are basically a piece of words that you are sending it, and then the piece of words that you are receiving, right? So that's where the tokens comes into the to 4 characters. So you can do math and how many tokens that you may need in order to process your data and getting the response back as well. So the other concept is embeddings, and which is really a vector representation of your data in a numerical format. And the whole purpose for this is sending a text is a little bit more, or manipulating the text is a little bit more challenging from a computer perspective. Computer deals with the numeric data much faster, as you all know. So this is where it converts the word representation in a vector in a numeric format, and then basically it is used for word similarity matching and stuff like that. It's very efficient in doing those kind of stuff. And basically you can use some algorithm related to cosine similarities and all those kind of stuff where it can find how far that two vectors are and stuff like that. And so it can know whether the two words are identical or two sentences are identical or not, right? So that's where it's used for. A few use cases for this embeddings are used today are in search similarities, recommendation or clustering side, where you store certain similar group of products or words in one same cluster, right? There's a concept also called completion. So when you use SDK or OpenAI Python library or something like that, that's where you see this completion pops up there. And basically, this is an endpoint that you use for a variety of types, mainly for text in and text out. So this is where what you use eventually feeds into that, and you receive the output from the model. There's also called concept called content filtering. This is part of the responsible AI, and what Microsoft is doing here is they are filtering inappropriate contents. If it sees some inappropriate language in your text input or output, it does filter those information out and triggers the event notifying that this event has happened, right? So again, this content filtering is by default available. You can opt out from it if you need. There is a form that you need to submit, and then you can provide a reason why you want to opt it out, but you can opt it out from it if you don't want it. There's also a concept of fine tuning. So again, the prompt is normally what you use to submit the input, and the refinement of prompt and all those things. Prompt engineering is one big major part of how you're getting the. Sometimes you want to bring your own organizational data that you want to implement or change your biases around your how model reacts or the weight of the certain models aspects of it. That's where the fine tuning comes into the play. So this is an opportunity for you to bring your own data or internal data or domain knowledge that you bring it into, you fine tune the model, and then basically you that fine tuning affects the biases and the weights that model is been trained on. Again, don't think that the fine tuning will affect the factual data. It's not intended to do that. It's just impacting the bias and the weightage aspects of it. All right, so moving on. So these are again, we already briefly covered that there are three models here. GPT-3 is mainly used for your generative nature for text, anything to do with the text where you are summarizing the text or chat stuff that you are asking something and then you are getting response back. And the codex is really where you want to ask OpenAI to write a code for you or SQL queries and stuff like that. So examples are right below there. So you ask it and then it will gonna write the code for you. And again, DALL-E, as I mentioned, it can do pretty good job when you provide the prompt. Okay, in this case, there's a white cat here, and then basically it will generate the photo behind it. But if you want to integrate or blend this cat with some other background and stuff like that, you put that into the prompt, and basically it starts to generate a very interesting images that you can play around with. All right, so again, in GPT-3, 4 different models here. Most powerful model is the Da Vinci, which is again used for more complex intent and for summarization and stuff like that. It has more token limits here, 4,000, as you can see here. The next level is the Curie, which is again a less powerful, but again, also the benefit of it is a little bit of a less costly and much faster. So if you don't have really complex use case, then you don't necessarily want to use the same hammer for everything. You can just use Curie in this case. It can do a fairly reasonable job and a pretty good job actually in the complex classification and text sentiment and summarization side of it. Babbage is another one, again, for little moderate classification or moderate kind of a use case, and ADA is again for a simple classification and not too complex use cases that you can use ADA. So general guidelines here is if you have any use case, you should start with Da Vinci first, and then if it can meet your need, what you are looking for, then you know that OpenAI is the right model that you can go with, and then you can after that you can try to play it out with other lower level models and see whichever model fits best for your need and your budget. Then you can lock down onto that particular model. Okay, moving on. Here's example of a couple of use cases here where you are using Da Vinci model here, and then you are providing the text here, and then basically asking a model, providing the instruction to filter or extract some information out. For example, in this case, you are asking what is the main reason of the conversation, and then basically it will gonna list out all the information here. What is the sentiment of the customer? How did the agent handle the conversation? All those things. So it does extract this information out from the text and put that as part of the output. So again, it does pretty good job in this as well. The other use case is in this case is so you're providing some instruction in English and asking, sorry, in German, and then in English you are asking to do certain things, right? Or write an email or write a letter in this case. So again, it can also do a translation as well from one language into another. So the input could be in one language, but then your output could potentially be in a different language as well. All right, so let's move on. I'm going to skip this one. Yeah, so this is again, if you want to extract some contents out from the email that you may have, like you want to extract out the email address or your address or something like that, you just ask that, feed that email into as an input, and then it's going to extract the address out from this email. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this one. So what I'm going to do now is let me launch the. We are running pretty close on this one, so let me quickly show you. So basically, the way you create the service is via you search for that OpenAI service here, and then basically pretty standard kind of a stuff where you just go and create the normal service where you can provide which region and all those kinds of stuff, name and all those kinds of stuff. And what it does, it provisions the service for you. You may not necessarily be able to do it right away. You will gonna have to submit a request form in order to get the access. Make sure if you are requesting sure you uncheck that tally option and then submit the request. Once your request is approved, then you should be able to provision the Azure OpenAI service. And here is what the Azure OpenAI service looks like. Pretty standard things here. One thing I would like to highlight here quickly is the networking here. So it does offer the same networking aspects where you can apply firewall rules and virtual network, drop this into your VNet and all those kinds of stuff, all the cool features that you can lock your security down. Everything is available in here as well. And if you go into the overview, there are different options here. So you can do a playground here, or you can also deploy your model. So before you use any model in your applications or anywhere, you need to deploy the model. So basically what it does is you create a new deployment here, provide the name, and you choose the model that you want to deploy, right? And that model becomes available for you to consume here. One thing to note here, once you choose a particular model, you cannot use the same model for your another deployments. It's only one model mapping that you can do it to the one deployment only. Unless it's a different version, that's a different story. Okay, so going back here, I'm gonna quickly show you the, okay, explore this one from a playground perspective. So what you can do here is, here's a playground here. Let's load one of the example here. So if you want to write for example, a code, right? And if you ask, okay, here's my information, here are my attributes, and then you can ask it to write a select statement. And basically what it does is it is going to basically fill out the information for select and then automatically write a query for you. So again, this is a very quick example of your a codec side of it, or DaVinci can also handle this one as well. Pretty okay. You can also do a summarization text. And basically, if you have a text here, you ask it to summarize it, and then basically it will going to give you the a short summarization of or gist of this whole text here. So again, there are different stuff that you can do it here. I mean, possibilities are unlimited here. In this case, it's going to, you're trying to classify certain things. So you give the example, what is a Facebook, how Facebook is classified, how LinkedIn is classified, and stuff like that. And then you ask model to classify FedEx, and then basically it is going to classify this based on what you have provided the prompt. And this is where, again, show and tell comes into the picture. Make sure you provide in more input you provide, better result you get, or more precise input you provide, more precise output you will get. On the right side, you see some temperature settings here. So if you need to be a little more generative in nature, then you can just change this temperature here. And then based on that, for example, if, as I said, if you're writing the poem, which is more generative in nature, then in that case, you increase the temperature a little bit higher. But if it's more factual information, you don't necessarily need this temperature higher in this case. We have about 4 minutes. I wanted to cover some more stuff, but apparently the use cases and all those things. So I think we are getting short of time. So I don't know if you want to open up for certain questions, or I can just bring up quick questions, certain questions that normally people have been asking. So I can quickly go on it, and then I'm not sure if this meets your needs or not, but you can put in the chat, and then I can cover those as well, or response back. So normally the one of the question comes is how to overcome model token limits, right? So most of the time that, okay, you have 4,000 limits or 2,500 or so limits. If you are sending the big documents, how are you going to do that? So normally the approach this is by doing the chunking mechanism, where you chunk the information into a paragraph or the size limit of the token, and then you break that, send the information out. You get the output or summarization of that one. Let's say you are summarizing the big document. So you send the documents into, the chunks of the document, summarize individually those things, and then you can combine that summarization and then put that as part of an output. In some cases, you can also use embeddings as well, which is basically a more efficient way to condense the input into much better way rather than sending the whole word. So that's another option. You can do it there as well. The very common question: how do you centrally govern and control the deployment and management of OpenAI service? And so what you can do here is you can use um, so we have a policy in Azure. So you can enforce policy where you can restrict certain folks to create a OpenAI service in certain subscription. So that is something you can control centrally in that way. You can also create a custom roles as well, which you can limit certain access and permissions as well. The other thing you can also apply on top of it is API management gateway, which is something you can then control the rate limits and access management and all those things. So those are the three mechanisms that you can use to centrally govern your OpenAI. Tuning. As I mentioned, you always start with a prompt engineering. That should be your first go. Try it out. Make sure you have it is meeting your need. Most cases, better prompt engineering can do a better result. Sometimes, if you're not getting better results, make sure you first try to do prompt engineering, better prompt engineering. If that doesn't meet your need, where you see that, yeah, you need to bring your more data into your model to train it, to change your bias and weights and all this kind of stuff, bring your own domain knowledge kind of stuff. This is where you bring your fine tuning in this case. Um, so yeah, these are the very common question I have been seeing. So if you guys have any other questions, I know we are a little bit over, but happy to address some of the questions.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Rohit. So let's see, we covered the lots of topics about Azure OpenAI services, and I got one question about its older version than yes, of course. So after the build 2023 event, we have a new version of the Azure Studio, that is Azure OpenAI to Azure AI Studio. So we can cover that topic as well in the tomorrow session and 7 p.m. tomorrow. And one more thing, yeah, so we can cover some of the topics about the DALI, chat reviews and completions and the private models. So I will cover some Q&A about so multiple streams so that we can able to know, so that we can able to, so after the build 2020 we can able to access for the multiple access what is the single stream as well. And yeah, so we can cover all these things to today's session, and I think we can schedule the machine learning part two. I mean, from part two that will be happening on the days. I mean, today is 1 p.m. I think so. So let's hope for the best so that we can able to what can we do on the community and the Microsoft and what are the products and so I'm always ready to guide you and ready to help you. So feel free to reach out us and reach out me and as well as the Inayat. So we are always that ready to help you. Okay. So thank you so much to those who are joining in the Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn as well. So thank you so much, guys. Yeah. So I just stopped the recording and the end the streaming. Right? So thank you so much to those who are joining the session. Yeah. So bye bye and see you in the evening.